Hello, you beautiful people. So it is finally time for my ESPN Points Leagues rankings. I know it's been a long time coming. This was originally going to be a top 75 rankings, but the file got deleted, so now it's going to be a top 50 rankings. It took a long time doing the research, so I tried to make this list as accurate as possible for you guys to really help you out with your drafts. So before we get started, just a few things to keep in mind. These guys are ranked in terms of who I think will score the most total points in default points leagues this year. This doesn't take into account positional scarcity or factors like that because I'm not a statistician and I don't know how to factor things like that into some mathematical equation. So it's totally based on total points at the end of the year, who I think is going to score the most. And the second thing, more importantly, this is just my opinion. If you do not agree, that is literally fine. I am not claiming to be some fantasy god, fantasy expert that knows everything. There's no way any ranking system is going to be 100% correct, but with that being said, if there's any rankings that you disagree with, instead of being mad and just calling me dumb in the comments, leave your disagreements in the comments in a respectful manner so then we can talk about it and other people can see what you're saying. So yeah, let's just try to help each other out here. I'm not saying these rankings are 100% correct. They are to the best of my abilities and the best of my knowledge who I think will score the most total points, and they're in the order that I would draft them in. But like I said, there's factors like positional scarcity and everything that you can't really factor in unless you're like an advanced statistician. So that being said, if these rankings do help you out, I'd appreciate if you could drop a like to help get this video out to more people and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by Christmas and I'd really appreciate the support. And with that being said, let's just get into the rankings. We're going to start with player 50 to 41. Alright, so I'm not going to talk about every single player in detail just to save you guys some time. I'm going to also post the whole list of this rankings in the Discord, so if you really wanted to save yourself some time, consider joining the Discord through the link in the description, and then you can have the whole list available to yourself. You don't have to watch the video to get it every time. But with that being said, first player on the list is going to be Cade Cunningham. He's the only rookie on the list. I really feel like he's going to have a great fantasy season. He can contribute in the defensive statistics department, main primary ball handler on the Pistons. Going to be all centered around him. I feel like he's going to have a really great season. And yeah, I'm expecting him to finish as the 50th player. 49th is a big sleeper to me. It's going to be OG Anunoby. Raptors are really stretched thin right now. And I think he's the number 2 option behind Fred VanVleet while Siakam's out. And even when Siakam returns, it looks like OG's game has improved offensively. A little more off the dribble this season. Plus, he contributes a lot in the defensive and rebounding stats. Very underrated player, and I think he's going to finish in the top 50. CJ McCollum, always solid. Not the best. I don't think he's ever going to crack top 30, but you know what you're going to get out of him. Really good scoring rate. I think he's going to finish 48th. Next up, we got Lonzo Ball at 47. Newly acquired Chicago Bulls player. I think he's going to have a really good season for the Bulls. I think the Bulls are a sneaky team in the East. Really looking forward to watching them play. They've been excited in preseason. I'm expecting his assist numbers to be really good. Really going to see probably a little bit of uptick in scoring just because of how the Bulls are going to play. He's really improved his spot-up three-point shooting. Have him coming in at 47. Then we got Scary Terry. Charlotte Hornets really had a great season last year, earned himself a big contract. I'm expecting very similar output and production this season. Not a lot's changed surrounding Terry Rozier's position in the team. Really expecting a very similar season. Same with Colin Sexton. Hasn't changed much in the guard rotation for the Cavs. He's still going to be taking a lot of shots, probably average around 25 points a game. Only reason he's not higher is the inefficiency, as we're all well aware of. He doesn't really contribute too well in any other categories, but well enough in his scoring rate to have him placed in the top 50. Then we got DeMar DeRozan, another Chicago Bulls player. DeMar DeRozan, really solid, really improved assist numbers last year. Looking forward to watching the Bulls play. Like I said, I'm expecting him to finish 44th. Going to average around 20 points a game, probably 6 assists maybe. A few rebounds, can't complain. DeMar DeRozan, pretty consistent. Everybody knows what you're going to get out of him. Then next up, Anthony Edwards, a player that I believe is very underrated right now. I'm expecting a big breakout season from Anthony Edwards. Timberwolves look like they're might be back to being all right this season. It's been a long time coming, but people are pegging this season to be the one where maybe they can finally get close to the play-in tournament, maybe even the playoffs. And I think Anthony Edwards is a critical piece to that. I think he's going to average upwards of 20 points per game. He was on fire the last stretch of the season. His fantasy numbers really took an increase. I'm expecting a similar trend to continue going into next season. 42, we got Brandon Ingram. Pelicans sort of spaced the floor out a bit more by adding Jonas Valanciunas. I really think that's going to help Ingram with his spacing around him. He's really good at getting to the rim. Has a lot of options, a lot of shots available for him to be taking. And then he's improved his assist numbers as well. So with Lonzo, Eric Bledsoe gone, the point guard rotation for the Pelicans isn't as crowded as it was before, so Ingram is going to have to create a lot more chances for others as well. So could see that assist number increase, and that'll just add to his overall fantasy value. But yeah, it's there's some inconsistencies with Ingram, so that's why he's coming all the way at 42nd. And And then next up, speaking of someone that has literally zero inconsistencies to me, it's going to be Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton is like just a pretty steady, solid player. He's someone that I feel safe having on my fantasy team. You pretty much always know what you're going to get out of Middleton. He doesn't miss a lot of games. He's only missed like 5 games or less in like the past 4 seasons, I believe. But yeah, I mean, it's 20 points a game, 6 rebounds, around 6 assists, and pretty much shooting 50, 40, 90 every season. Just having that consistency, I think, is a very important feature. And I just love to have that on my fantasy team. So Chris Middleton's going to round off this section of the list, coming in at 41 for me. All right, so coming in at number 40, we have Michael Porter Jr., and he's someone that I was way higher on going into the season before his vaccination status came out. I was honestly expecting him to have like a top 25 season, but due to the uncertainty surrounding him and the vaccination status, as it stands, he is allowed to play in away games and home games, so like it remains to be determined how that's going to affect the season if those rules are going to change. But due to those sort of uncertainties, that's why I've dropped him all the way down to the 40th spot. I really disappointed. I wish I could have drafted him. I really think he's still going to have a great year, but it's just the uncertainties caused me to be more hesitant towards drafting him because I'm really a cautious player when it comes to like my first few round picks, and I just feel like there's a lot better options, but the upside is still too high to deny taking him out of the top 50 for me, so that's why he's coming in at the 40 spot. Next up is Christian Wood, another player with like top 25 potential, but it's just the staying on the court, staying healthy. The Rockets have added Jalen Green this year. Kevin Porter Jr. is looking really nice as a backcourt mate to him. I really think Wood's going to flourish, going to have a lot of opportunities, probably put up very similar numbers to last year, if not a little bit better. But like I said, it's just the injury concerns. Can he stay on the floor? Can he stay healthy? It's really going to determine his fantasy value. And then coming in at 38 and 37, we have 2 Phoenix Suns players, DeAndre Ayton and Chris Paul. DeAndre Ayton, really solid, had a really great playoff campaign. I think he's going to be averaging around, could be close to 20 and 10 this season, believe it or not. I'm pretty confident that he's going to be taking a big step in his statistical numbers. We all know how great of a player he was and how much potential he's shown, and I'm really just expecting that to take a big leap. And then in terms of Chris Paul, he did finish inside the top 10 last season, and maybe I will regret ranking him so low at 37, but it's just, I don't know, man. Something about players going into like their 17-year plus season, I'm just a bit more hesitant towards drafting them because maybe their production will start to take a dip. Maybe this is the season where they'll start to relax a little bit, allow other people to do more of the work in the regular season. So while Chris Paul had a really good season last year, I'm still iffy on drafting him like close to the top 10. Who knows, maybe he'll surprise me again. I could definitely be wrong on this one, but as for now, I'd probably draft him around 37th. I think he's going to score probably like 37 total amount of points in points leagues. And yeah, that's just how I feel about him. Then Drew Holiday, really solid player, really contributes in like the peripheral stats, which is like criminally underrated part of fantasy for points leagues in my opinion, because if a player's having a bad night, it's not as bad as it could be if they're contributing in other categories, so you don't have to rely purely on them scoring the ball and having an efficient shooting night. So that's why Drew Holiday fits in really nicely. Then we got Clint Capella, who had a really good season last year for the Hawks. He would be ranked a bit higher, but he is still suffering like a nagging injury to his Achilles. So that does make me a bit more cautious about drafting him closer to the 20s. But yeah, he's coming in at 35th right now. Probably average around 15 and 15. Really great rebounder. Love his production for fantasy. I really like really solid rebounders that you can sort of rely on to contribute in a category regardless of the opposition. Excuse me. Then next up is someone who's sort of underperformed last year from a fantasy perspective. It's going to be Ja Morant. And I'm willing to bet Ja Morant's production is going to take a bit of a leap next year. He sort of started off the season well and he had an injury. But yeah, I mean, he's the main focal point of the Grizzlies offense. I think he is starting to figure things out a bit more, get more comfortable in the NBA. And once he works on like his shooting, that's his main issue that's holding him back right now. If that's 3-point numbers take a little bit of an increase, if the defense has to respect him a little bit more from outside, then he can get to the rim even easier and use his explosive athleticism. And then pairing him with Steven Adams, a really great roll man, I think that might help him. Their pick and roll game is probably going to be very lethal, so I definitely watch out for a lot of assists being generated there. And yeah, hopefully Ja Morant's efficiency sees a little bit of an uptick as well. I'm pretty confident that he is going to finish inside the top 40 for sure, but he could have some variation if he has another disappointing season or something shitty happens. But like I said, who knows? I'm going to put him at 34th on my list for right now. And then we'll move on to Devin Booker. Speaking of players that had disappointing seasons last year, I was very high on Devin Booker. I had him ranked inside the top 20 last season, and that just did not come into fruition. I thought Chris Paul was going to help his numbers, but all it did was take away all of Devin Booker's assist numbers. That being said, he still averaged 4 assists per game, Still not great. Maybe that can see a little bit of an increase if Chris Paul does start to slow down and Booker can start to become more of a primary ball handler, creator for his team. But yeah, in the playoffs, Devin Booker was averaging like 27 points per game, and the assist numbers were around the same. But who knows? Maybe we'll see a little bit of increase in Devin Booker's production this year. I'm comfortable right now placing him at the 33rd slot, and definitely some room to improve. But we'll just have to see if him and Chris Paul can get to a system where it's sort of better for Devin Booker's fantasy numbers. But who knows if that'll even happen. Then we got Tobias Harris coming into 32nd. Tobias Harris is someone that I feel like is getting very overlooked right now. The only reason he's not inside my top 20 is because initially when you think about it, it's like, okay, Ben Simmons isn't playing, so the only options on the Sixers are going to be Harris and Embiid for like top 50 fantasy players. But then it's like, well, let's say Ben Simmons gets traded. They are going to get a significant return for him. Like there's definitely going to be at least one star player. So then it's like Harris isn't just like becoming the de facto number 2 option because you don't know what Ben Simmons' trade return is going to be. And then if it ends up that Ben Simmons somehow stays on the Sixers, then it's like, okay, well then you sort of wasted a pick on Tobias Harris that high if Simmons is still playing for them. But that being said, he is a really solid, consistent performer for fantasy. Sort of like a Chris Middleton situation, just an overall decent, steady performer. I know what I'm going to get out of him. Going to provide some decent scoring numbers. Doesn't miss a ton of games. Very consistent, gets to his spots well, probably average around 20 points per game. All right rebounder, nothing crazy, but yeah, Tobias Harris, decent percentages as well, so just a solid player. If Ben Simmons ends up just like sitting out and they don't trade him, it's just like one of a really weird situation, I could definitely see his value taking an increase because he is a really gifted scorer, and especially when given more opportunity, I think his numbers will take a jump. But for right now, I have him coming in at 32. And then at 31, we have Zach LaVine. And I forgot to record my draft that I did for like my personal league, which I'm kind of kicking myself about, but I'll show you guys my team in another video. But yeah, I just drafted Zach LaVine. I got him around 33rd, which is I'm all right with because I have him ranked at 31. I'm curious to see how the new look Bulls are going to perform, but I still think LaVine is like their number 1 scoring option. I think most of the offense is going to run through him. He averaged 27 points per game last season. He was on fire for stretches of time. I'm expecting him to average still around 25 points per game. Maybe he'll take like a 2-point decrease, but overall, really consistent production. I know what I'm going to get. An absolutely explosive athlete that can score the ball from all 3 levels. The Bulls are probably going to be playing a bit of a fast-paced team now that they got Lonzo, Caruso, DeRozan, LaVine. Some really good transition players. He's going to have a lot of options, so maybe his assist numbers could take a little bit of an increase. And yeah, I mean, maybe there'll be some more like offensive sets run with like better spacing around LaVine so he can operate. And who knows? The Bulls are exciting. LaVine's exciting. I have him coming in at 31. That's going to do it for the 40 to 31 ranked players, and we'll just go ahead and get into the 30 to 21 ranked players. So coming in at number 30, I have Jaylen Brown. I'm expecting a big increase in his production from last season. Not like insanely big, but he was a really solid performer last year. Really liked the production that he was giving on fantasy. He had a hand injury occur. I don't think it's anything serious. He's back playing all as of now. Probably get around 20 shots a game. Probably average 26 points. Overall, really solid production. Jaylen Brown, number 2 option on a really good team, aka the Celtics, best team in the league. But anyway, we'll just continue. Number 29, Westbrook. The only reason he's not higher is because I don't know how the new look Lakers are going to go. I'm expecting Westbrook to still be a really consistent performer, average close to a triple-double. I just think his scoring numbers might take a bit of a decrease because he's going to take a bit of a backseat to AD and LeBron. But yeah, there's going to be plenty of games where AD and LeBron sit out or they sort of coast through and let Westbrook take most of the load. Like those 3 will probably have a bit of an alternating system going on. So there's a lot of chances for Westbrook to move up this list. He could honestly push top 15 if there's like an injury to one of AD or LeBron. But for right now, I have him coming in at 29 as things stand. 28, we have DeJounte Murray. And 27, we have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These guys sort of highlight that you cannot underestimate the value of having guys that are the number 1 option on their NBA team, on your fantasy team. Because if they're the number 1 option, it's just maximizing your chances to get fantasy points. Like if they have the ball in their hand the majority of the time, they have the most opportunities to accrue fantasy points, put together, whether it be rebounds, assists, scoring. They're really just like the primary facilitators on their team. And then in the case of DeJounte Murray, you're getting really great value in the defensive stats as well with the steals. He's an underrated rebounder and assist, like playmaker, I should say. So yeah, I'm expecting them both to have really solid seasons. I know there's hesitancy with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Thunder and the phantom injuries and whatnot, so that's why he is all the way down at 27th. He's a bit higher than DeJounte Murray because we've seen that what Shai's capable of before, so I'm a bit more confident in that he'll return a higher fantasy output. But for right now, they're going to rest at 28 and 27. And then we have probably my 3 most controversial rankings. But if you saw my video on guys that I said do not draft, the reason I don't want to draft them is because all of their average draft positions are like top 15, and I'm expecting them to finish in like the 20s to 30 range in terms of their value. So we got 26 Anthony Davis, 25 LeBron, 24 Kevin Durant. These guys are top 10 players in the league, all 3 of them, in like terms of real life. But for fantasy purposes, they don't have a lot of incentive to go out there every night and play in the regular season and put their all into carrying their teams. There's going to be nights where they take off. They can have some load management. They have other options on their team that are perfectly capable of like carrying a game and having them like take it easy in a way. But yeah, I'm expecting their values to not be that high just simply due to games played, minutes played, and everything. So that's why they're all the way down in the 20s for me. Everyone above them is just guys that I'm more confident in that their ability to play basketball games. Like I'm more confident in that they're not going to skip games or rest games for load management or anything. But yeah, I just feel like LeBron, AD, and Kevin Durant are criminally overrated just because of how good at basketball they are, and I just feel like people their vision sort of gets clouded by that in terms of their fantasy values. So anyway, we'll just keep moving on. 23, I have Jimmy Butler. It seems like the Heat made a lot of additions this year that's going to affect Jimmy's value, but realistically, they pretty much only added like Kyle Lowry, and like they already had Goran Dragic last year, so it's not like he wasn't playing with a point guard that sort of has the ball in his hands some of the time. Thing with Jimmy Butler is he does sometimes have these off games where he scores like hardly any points, like not a lot of rebounds. He just sort of focuses on trying to get his teammates involved. But I think that sort of gets outweighed by the games where he does sort of contribute in like every statistical category. I think he's really going to have a good season this year. I have him coming in at 23rd. Next up, Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is somewhat of a mirage because in the playoffs, he puts up absolutely ridiculous numbers, and he doesn't really come close to touching them in terms of the efficiency in the regular season. He averaged 33 points per game in the playoffs on 48% from the field, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and 5 3-pointers a game. But yeah, if those numbers sort of come remotely close to translating into the regular season, then he's just going to be an absolute fantasy monster, and I can't see him passing outside of the top 25. Even if he sort of maintains his production from last season, he is the number 1 option again on a fantasy team. I'm more comfortable like taking him, and yeah, I really trust that the Jazz are going to finish like probably a top 3 in the league, so you don't have to worry about Donovan Mitchell tanking or something dumb like that. But yeah, Donovan Mitchell, solid production, really great scoring the ball. His assist numbers are decent. Probably going to finish close to the top 20. And then someone else that I think is going to take a huge leap is going to be Fred VanVleet. He's finally the solo guard in their backcourt. There is Goran Dragic, but it looks like he's probably going to get moved, so he doesn't really want to be there. So that really opens the door for Fred VanVleet. VanVleet is a very underrated fantasy player. Averaged 20 points per game last season, 6 assists, almost 2 steals a game, and I'm expecting those numbers to probably take a little bit of an increase. And he plays like top 5 minutes played in the league last season because Nick Nurse loves to play VanVleet. He's going to be on the floor a lot of the time, gives him a lot of opportunities to accrue fantasy points. Definitely someone I'm looking at taking because he is sort of undervalued because he plays for the Raptors, not a huge name to most common fans, but Fred VanVleet, looking forward to a really solid number. He's going to be the number 1 option on the team for the majority of the season. When Siakam comes back, they'll probably share that responsibility a bit more, but yeah, Fred VanVleet, very solid player. Would definitely look at picking him close to the top 20, and I think he'll probably finish 21st in terms of total fantasy points. And yeah, now it's time for the 20 to 11th ranked players. Alright, so at 20 might be my most controversial placement on this section of the list, but I have LaMelo Ball coming in here. Number 1 options, like I said, love to have them on your team. And in terms of LaMelo Ball, we saw last season prior to when he got hurt, he was putting up like 26 and 6, and that was in his rookie season. Probably going to be some growth in his game, almost like inevitable. If a player has a really good rookie season, like the majority of the time, you're really going to see an increase in their production going into the following season. And yeah, with increased minutes, I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up 22 points per game, probably around 7 rebounds and maybe 8 assists. And for someone like that the offense is primarily focused around, the Hornets are a really fast-paced team, so there's a lot of opportunities for fantasy points there. And yeah, LaMelo Ball, I really just think he's going to have a top 20 season. He contributes in a lot of categories, gets more steals than people give him credit for. The assist numbers everybody knows about, and I do think his scoring is probably going to be in the 20s this season. So putting all those factors together, I think he's going to finish top 20 this season. And then yeah, Julius Randle plays the most minutes in the league. I don't think he's going to finish top 10 as he did last year because Kemba and Fournier have been added to the Knicks roster, so he's not going to have to do as much on the offensive end this season. Probably a few less shot attempts, but just the fact that Tibbs loves to play him literally the entirety of the game. Finished number 1 in minutes played last season. Pretty consistent, didn't miss a lot of games. You know what you're going to get from him? The rebounds, the points, and honestly, Julius Randle passing ability, I think it's a bit underrated. He had a few like double-digit assist games last year. So yeah, if you're combining all those factors, the minutes, the points, the rebounds, and some assists, very solid overall player. Gotta love Julius Randle. He's been the profile picture on this channel for ever since I created it, honestly. I don't even know why I did, but gotta love Julius Randle. I think he's probably going to finish in the top 20 for sure, just giving the amount of time played and what he can contribute on the basketball court. All right, so 18, someone that is a very polarizing player in real life, but for fantasy, it's pretty much just the blocks and the rebounds. The blocks really boost Gobert's numbers. He averages around like almost 3 blocks per game. I'm expecting that trend to continue. He really anchors the Jazz's defense, and just by like crowding the paint, always being in the paint, protecting the rim, he's bound to get a shit ton of rebounds. He averaged 14 rebounds per game last season. Had like every single game you're going to be getting double-digit rebounds out of Gobert essentially, and then whatever points he can contribute is just an added bonus on top of that. And he averaged around 15 points per game. I would expect that to continue in the next season. I don't expect a lot of variation in Gobert's numbers at all. He didn't miss a lot of games last year either, and I'm pretty much expecting a similar output out of Gobert, who did finish inside the top 10 last season. But yeah, this season I just expect him to come in at 18 because I'm expecting the guys ahead of him to just have more points contributed. Like if you're scoring the ball a lot, it's really easy to score fantasy points. So the guys ahead of him sort of provide very consistent stats, but also have the ability to have games where they can go off for like 30 points. Next up on my list, another center is going to be Bam Adebayo. I feel like he's very underrated for fantasy perspectives. I personally love Bam Adebayo. I would try to draft him in like every league if I could. I just love the overall production he provides in every statistical category. He doesn't really have any weaknesses in his game right now. And yeah, he shot 57% from the field last season. He seems to be making like huge strides in his playmaking, his ability to score, like create his own shot. He's taking more mid-ranges. Overall, very solid player. Love Bam Adebayo. I don't think the addition of Kyle Lowry is going to do anything but help his fantasy numbers because we've already seen it in preseason. Don't want to read too much into preseason, as of course everybody knows that, but they sort of have some connections going on. He's getting hit ahead in transition, and he's just getting a lot of easy dunks that way. They have some pick and roll action that's looking pretty smooth right now. So yeah, hopefully that helps Bam's numbers. I have him coming 17th. 16th, Trae Young. Who knows how the new anti-flopping rules are going to affect his game. Everybody knows all Trae Young does is flop. I'm just kidding, just messing with my Hawk fans out there. I do love me some Trae Young. I do think he's going to have a really good fantasy season. He had a nice fantasy season last season. Probably averaged around similar numbers. I'm not expecting a huge change in production. The Hawks haven't really changed anything around him. Everybody knows I don't really have a lot to say about him. The teams run around him. He's number 1 option on the team, creates all of their offenses. Everything's running through him. Just love to have that sort of production and that sort of like focal point on a team, on your fantasy team. And then 15, Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is a guy that has the potential to be like top 3 in fantasy. He could honestly challenge for the MVP in fantasy if he could stay on the floor. He was challenging for MVP in real life, but it's similar problem, just the games played let him down. He hasn't had a season where he's like missed 20 games or less in a long time, so I think you sort of just kind of have to accept that you're not going to be getting all 82 games out of Embiid. You'd probably be lucky to get like 70. Like 70 would be pushing your luck. But yeah, even with the diminished games, the output that he gives you when he does play is just too insane to pass up on. Contributes so much in like the points and rebounds categories. Always going, like last season, what he averaged? Like 30 points per game almost, 28.5 points per game, 10.5 rebounds. Absolute monster in the post. Second best center in the league right now after Nikola Jokic, And yeah, if Ben Simmons is gone, I think that helps boost Joel's numbers now. So he might just go Super Saiyan and be the fantasy MVP if he stays healthy. So that's why I don't think you can draft him any lower than 15th. But I just think there is the injury concerns, the missing games and stuff like that. So that's why he's all the way at 15th. But Joel Embiid is someone that, like, if you do want to take the risk and grab him earlier, it could pay off for you. And I guess I would be comfortable taking him like maybe all the way like up in the top 10. But for me personally, I am more cautious with my first round pick, so I wouldn't take Embiid till 15. Then we got Vucevic, who's pretty much like the most consistent, like top 15 player that you could possibly find. Can't really ask for much more than out of a center than Vucevic. He can pretty much get 20 and 10 every single game, no matter who he's playing. I just love having guys like that on my team. Another guy coming up, Domantas Sabonis, very similar. I just love having both of those players. I know exactly what I'm going to get out of them. I don't have to worry that they're going to choke and have a few off games, because if they're going to contribute in a solid rebounding effort, you really have nothing to be concerned over. Yeah, Vucevic, very solid, very consistent. Just love the durability, what he contributes. Got nothing but good things to say about him. 13, we have De'Aaron Fox. I put Swipe of the Fox because I had no idea how to spell De'Aaron at the time I was making this. But anyway, I'm expecting him to take a big leap this season. The Sacramento Kings have added Davion Mitchell. They've got another backcourt mate for him. But I think everything on the Kings is going to be running through Fox. He's going to be averaging very similar numbers, but just at like an increased rate of points, I would say. Like, he just has to improve the efficiency a little bit. So he was averaging like 25 points per game last year, which I think a lot of people aren't really fully aware of. His field goal percentage was at 47%. Three-pointers were going up. And I'm just expecting like a similar trend, you know? I really think De'Aaron Fox is capable of having a top 15 season. I just drafted him in my personal league. Got him at around 17th or 16th, I believe. So very happy with that. And I think he's going to finish 13th this season. 12... I won't talk about him too much because I talk about him in most of my videos. Domantas Sabonis. God, I love Domantas Sabonis, bro. So consistent, so durable. The rebounding rate is just such a great fallback to have. The assist numbers are there as well, plus the points, post scorers, very high field goal percentage. And then people were worried because like LeVert and TJ Warren were coming into the team. Maybe that's going to affect Sabonis' numbers, but already going into the season, Warren doesn't have a timetable for return. LeVert has the stress fracture in his back. I'm just not even too concerned about it. Sabonis is still going to be the number one option. And if we remember the last 2 weeks of the season, he pretty much won some people their leagues last year. He was on an absolute tear because he was pretty much shouldering all of their offense. So I don't think numbers like that will continue or are sustainable for the entire season, but I think he'll get pretty close. I love Sabonis. I would highly recommend taking him. I think he's going to finish around 12th this season. And then we have at 11, Bradley Beal. If you watched my top 10 rankings video, I have made some changes just due to like information that's arisen or occurred. I have moved some players around. Bradley Beal, the unvaccinated status is a cause for concern. Otherwise, he would probably be in my top 10. He doesn't have to miss his home games because there's not a mandate in Washington, but we don't really know how these things are going to change throughout the season. But I just feel like the upside for Bradley Beal is just far too high to consider not taking him any lower than 11th. He's going to average around 30 points per game. He's not sharing the backcourt with Russell Westbrook this season. It's just Beal, primary creator. The Wizards have built like a better team around him, but nothing close to what Bradley Beal's level's on. He's going to be creating everything. Everything's going to be coming through him. Number one option. Led the league in scoring last season, I believe. Expecting that to continue. Who knows, maybe he'll miss a few games if the Wizards if they start doing poorly. But overall, I just feel like Bradley Beal's production is just too good to pass up on. He has a decent team around him, so it won't be like he's getting constantly triple teamed. He can have other options to pass to, so maybe his assist numbers will see a little increase. And he's got a little bit of spacing around him as well. So I'm expecting a really good season out of Bradley Beal. I don't think he's going to crack top 10 because I'm just worried about the games missed and everything, so that's why I'm taking him at 11th. And then we've made it to the top 10 rankings. I'm not going to talk about these guys too much because I had a recent video come out about my top 10 rankings, and they haven't changed that much. The only change was with Paul George, Zion, and Tatum. I switched the order around. I have Tatum at 8th now, Zion still at 9th, and then I replaced Sabonis with Paul George because I just feel like the upside of Paul George, I know in the past videos I've said, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't take Paul George, the injury risks, but I think the upside is too high to pass on. I think he's capable of having an MVP season this year with the Clippers, with Kawhi being out. And if he can put up those MVP numbers, play a lot of games that the Clippers are going to need him to if they want to make the playoffs, I really think he's going to be in the top 10 for fantasy, and that's just too alluring of an upside to pass up on. Number 9, Zion Williamson. Foot injury made me a little bit hesitant, but they say, or it wasn't his foot. Yeah, I think it was like a broken toe or something, but they said he's going to be ready for the start of the season. Broken toe isn't going to be like a lingering issue. so I'm not too concerned about it. Was a little hesitant when the news report came out, but so far it looks like everything's all right, so not too much cause for concern there. Number 8, we have Jason Tatum. Gonna take a big leap this year. Love Jason Tatum, man. If you guys don't know, I'm a huge Celtics fan if you're new to the channel. I don't want to fangasm over Tatum too much, so we'll just keep going. Then the rest are the same as they were in my other video, except I've changed the order of Steph Curry and James Harden. But even in my initial video, I did mention that I do view them as interchangeable. Don't think you can go wrong. Choosing Steph Curry or Harden is going to be what decides the fate of your fantasy league, because they're both just really great options. Would love to have either of them on your team, so it's really just about personal preference in terms of those two at this point. But for right now, I am leaning towards taking Harden 4th because of the Kyrie Irving news that he might be missing a ton of games, so that just really opens up the floor for Harden. So yeah, that's going to finish up my rankings. Top 10, we got Paul George, Zion, Tatum, Lillard, Karl Anthony Towns, Curry, Harden, Doncic, Giannis, and the best player in fantasy that's going to have the most total points in points leagues this year. Who else but Big Chungus Nikola Jokic? I'm viewing him as the number 1 player in points leagues. I think if you have a draft and you have the number 1 pick, it has to be Jokic. I don't think you can really look anywhere else if you want to maximize your pick. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. This video did take me a long time. I was flip-flopping back and forth so much trying to get these rankings out for you guys, trying to get them as best as possible in terms of their accuracy. And if you guys do want to see a top 100 players, then let me know, because I can work on that. Like I said, the file did get deleted, so I couldn't exactly remember, but I just wanted to get a video out because I said I'd have these rankings out on Friday, so try to put it together for you guys. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helps you out. If you disagree with me, like I said, just leave a comment. Consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. And as always, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.